Welcome to another episode of the Black Beauty Activist Podcast. My name is Dr. Tameka Ellington. For those of you that don't know me, I am the host of this show. I'm a scholar, empowerment speaker, author, and lover of all things Black culture. And in today's episode, we will be discussing goals, dreams, Christian devotionals, and thoughts of Blackness as a monolith. For those of you that don't know monolith meaning that we as Black people being the same, or any race of people being the same. As we all know, no race of one individual is all the same. And so we're going to be talking a little bit about that and breaking that down, that concept. My next guest was introduced to me by a friend of mine who also happens to have served as my brand manager. She's an amazing woman. Her name is Meredith Leah McCormick. She introduced me to my next guest, and she met this amazing author and speaker and passed her on to me. She passed on a copy of my book onto her, and they got to talking about us, and Meredith thought that we would have a dynamic conversation. And so here we are today. I'm super excited to get a chance to talk to her. And I'm speaking of no one other than Miss Silvia Davis, award-winning author and speaker, and she's on with us today. Welcome to the Black Beauty Activist Podcast. Thank you so much for joining us.
Hi, Dr. Tameka. Thank you for having me. I'm really excited, and I'm thankful to Meredith for bringing us together.
Absolutely. So I'm going to read your bio so that everyone can learn a little bit about you and what you've been up to. And so Silvia Davis is a distinguished speaker and author with a background characterized by excellence. When I read that, I said, that's my type of woman, characterized by excellence. Yes. She earned her place as a finalist in the Toastmasters World Championship, an accolade that reflects her exceptional oratory skills and compelling presence on stage. Her gift of storytelling led her to become an award-winning author who captivates readers with insightful narratives and thought-provoking ideas. Her literary endeavors has not only led to a best-selling title, but has also showcased her ability to craft tales that resonate deeply with a wide audience. Beyond her literary accomplishments, Silvia's impact as a speaker is equally impressive. She's recognized for her dynamic and engaging presentations, and she's earned accolades for her ability to inspire, educate, and uplift her audience. With a strong online presence, including a following of over 10,000 people on Instagram, she continues to extend her influence and message to a global community. And Silvia is dedicated to personal growth, and extends beyond her own achievements. As a mentor and leader, she has guided over 400 women in their journey towards improved health and lifestyle. Her commitment to empowering others is a testament to her passion for making a positive difference in the lives of those who she encounters. And while her personal accomplishments are shining brightly, Silvia's personal interests reflect her multifaceted nature. In her leisure time, she enjoys the intricate art of crochet, indulges in cinematic experiences, and embraces the warmth of Christmas. That's your favorite season, Christmas?
This is my time right now. I feel like the rest of the world is just catching up with me because I've been listening to Christmas carols for at least the past month.
So. Oh my gosh, that's funny. And she enjoys she also enjoys a fulfilling life as a role of a dedicated mother and a wife. And it's my pleasure to introduce you all to Silvia Davis. I'm really excited to speak with her today. She is definitely a woman of God. Everything that I have seen when I was doing my research to learn more about her, she writes about her passion for her faith. She speaks about her passion for her faith. And she brings, what I love about what you've been doing is that you also bring a lightheartedness to it. It's not very serious. You make sure that people can grasp what you're saying, get the scriptures, but also to leave feeling empowered and lighthearted at the same time. So I appreciated that about your speaking.
Oh, thank you.
Oh,
I I, I appreciate that.
oh, of course, absolutely, absolutely. Can you
Yeah,
talk?
we'll
Yeah,
definitely talk a
yeah,
little bit more about that when we
yeah.
talk about the book.
Please,
When we talk about the book.
absolutely, absolutely. Can you discuss a little bit about your childhood? How did you grow up, and what has molded you into the person that we see today?
Well, I consider myself blessed to have grown up. Number one, I come from a large family. I'm the oldest of five, so I have three sisters and one brother. Our brother is the youngest, and my parents they created the most loving, nurturing home for us. We got to see how a Black couple could love each other and also love their children. And sometimes, stereotypical world that we live in, that's not the dynamic that's
Mhm.
portrayed about Black families, but that is the Black family that I can proudly say that I grew up in.
Mhm.
And growing up with my siblings, I would say, as far as how it shaped who I am today, I would have to say the learning how to work in a dynamic with six other people who were all living under the same roof, but we're all so different from each other. How five people could be raised by the same two people and
Mhm.
be so different. But
Mhm.
yes, but it's a matter of the fact that I think what I learned from that, one of the many things I learned from that is you don't always have to agree. You don't always have to get along, but you still find a way to love each other. You still
Yeah.
find a way to care about each other. You still find a way to respect each other.
Yeah.
And that has carried over into my life outside of growing up Crawford, which is my
Yeah.
maiden name. So
Yeah. That's awesome. I saw that you all have done a couple episodes, like as sibling episodes together. That's cool.
Yes, siblings talk trending. That's something brand new that we are just getting started. And it has been so much fun. I've been sick the past couple of weeks, so I got to get caught back up on uploading the videos. But yes, siblings talk trending is where the five of us come together and we find whatever, some video that's trending, some topics that's trending, and then we talk about it. And then of course
Mhm.
the discussion usually goes off in a lot of different areas. But one thing about my family, and I cherish this about us, we're, and if I do say so myself, it's entertaining. It's funny. We crack each other up. And even when we were kids growing up, when our friends would come over to the house, we always got compared to the Cosby Kids because, five
Mm.
of us, four girls, one boy, obviously Black family. We were the real life Cosby Kids. And
Mhm.
our friends would just have a blast when they came over. And we were just being us. And
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
has extended into our adulthood. We figured, you know what, why not have a little fun with it and record these conversations and post some of these stories. So that's
That's
what
really cool.
Feeling is.
That's cool that you got them all to agree to get on there. Was this your idea? Was this whose idea was it?
Well, it's kind of funny because so the book was, we had all thought about writing these stories of our childhood. We'd all thought about it, but we knew that of the five of us, there were only two of us that would actually ever do it. And that was me and my sister Gina. And
Okay.
Gina's got her own business going. So I took it up. And with Siblings Talk Trending, it just seemed a natural extension of that. And what happened was, as I'm trying to build up my social media presence and things like that, I'm working with someone, and I had told her that I had this idea of talking to people and getting their opinions on things. She said, "Why not your siblings? They would be perfect for this." And I didn't think that my siblings would want to do it. Because they're not big on being on camera, and
Mhm.
but
Mhm.
every single one of them said yes.
That is
So
cool. That is so cool. That's really, really cool. That's nice. Wow. So I got a chance to listen to a couple of the interviews that you've done in the past, and you were on an interview podcast called The Author Show, and you had mentioned the fact that you didn't learn about your capabilities to motivate others until you were in your 40s, which I think is, you and I have a lot in common in that way. And what was it that that you did before you were doing this? What were you doing before you started speaking and authoring books and things like that? And how did you, what inspired you to get into what you're doing now?
So to answer your question, what was I doing before?
Yeah.
Nothing.
Were you a stay-at-home mom?
No, so I was a stay-at-home mom for a little while, which I will never regret. And then when I did get out into the workforce, I worked at an insurance agency. And when I went to work for them, it was my intention for it to be a temporary thing.
Okay.
15 years later, I
Wow.
was still there.
Wow.
It was not, but what happened was we're not here to be mediocre. None of us. Not one of us. And my job was I had reached pretty much the ceiling with the position that I had. It wasn't moving me, and it wasn't making a difference, and I really didn't see myself as helping other people with it.
Mhm.
And in my faith and my belief, I'm like, the Lord did not put any of us here. And it might sound crazy if you think about the numbers. Oh, well, everybody can't be great. Yes, everybody has the capability to be great. And it's just the fact that we know that everybody won't do what it takes to be great.
Yeah.
So that's why I can safely say everybody has the capability. So
Yeah.
once I made that decision, it's like, look, I started praying about it. I'm like, Lord, what am I supposed to be doing? Because I know this is not it. But little aspects of the job kind of shed light on it. Like in that role, I was a trainer, and I found that I enjoyed being up in front of people and speaking. But I'll
Mhm.
tell you what really that defining moment, what made me say, I want to be on stage speaking. That defining moment was I had a job doing something like multi-level marketing, like the party plan businesses where you go out and do parties. And I went to a conference, and there was a speaker speaking at the conference, a Black woman. I cannot remember her name. But what happened was, she got the whole crowd just enthused, and everybody's on their feet. And
Mm.
so everybody around me is getting these ideas about, oh, great, I'm going to go out and be this great salesperson. But me, I'm like, I want to be her.
Yeah.
I want to be that
Yeah.
woman on stage. And that was
Yeah.
when that first kind of kindling started. And that's when I'm like, that's what I'm supposed to be doing. I just need to find
Gosh.
what I need to speak about.
We have a lot in common, Sylvia. I had a very similar experience. My background is in fashion design. And so the very first job that I had was serving as a fashion designer. I was working for big companies. One of the last companies that I worked for was Abercrombie and Fitch. I was a designer for them. And so I'm sitting at my desk at Abercrombie, and I all of a sudden get this wave of a feeling that I'm like, I'm supposed to be doing something else. I was happy with the job that I had. I was making good money. I was producing product, what I was trained to do. I was a great designer, was having a lot of fun doing what I was doing, but I felt empty. There was something that was very empty inside of me, and I couldn't explain what it was. And really, God just started giving me these little nuggets of information like, okay, this is what I want you to do. And so it led me into becoming an educator. And so I taught for about 15 years, and being an educator is then what got me on the stage. And
Mm-hmm.
then, like you, I realized, this is pretty cool to be able to have, like, to get up on a stage and to be able to have an influence and be able to shift the energy in the room. I mean, I love it. I mean, it's like a natural high for me. I love, love, love getting in front of a room of people and speaking and empowering them. Absolutely. And the fact that you and I both in our 40s, that's what, that's when it started. I mean, you know how people say, some of my friends thought I was crazy because I had a great job. I was actually a dean at the university before I left. And they were like, well, why would you leave this job? I'm like, there's something else I'm supposed to be doing. And when you get that little spark of what it is, people that, like you said, that live in excellence, they are not afraid to take that step, right?
Yes, and to add to that, to
Yeah.
anyone who's listening, who feels like I'm I'm in my 40s now. I'm in my 50s
Mhm,
now. If I was going to do
mhm.
something, I should have done it already. It's
Uh-huh.
too late. No, it's not.
It's not.
No,
It's
it's not.
not.
It's never too late to live your best.
Yeah.
It's never,
Yeah.
if you have not lived your best, if there is still that calling and there's still breath in your lungs,
Mhm.
it's not too late. It's
Yeah.
so
It's never too late. Absolutely. And so you are the author of the award-winning Christian devotional, Living a Parable. Uh, Lessons in Unlikely Experiences. Please discuss a bit about your book. You referred to your book when I was listening to one of the podcasts. I remember you referring to your book as having a similar structural framework as the famous self help book, Chicken Soup for the Soul. Can you talk a little bit about that? Because most people know Chicken Soup for the Soul and have been very attached to that book. And so it's a beautiful thing that you see some of that in the work that you did. So can you talk a little bit about that?
well, when I read Chicken Soup for the Soul, and I didn't, I kind of read it shortly after I wrote my book, or but what I saw the similarities of was the structure of it, how
Mhm.
there are these short stories. And my book is pretty much the same way. And it was just purely by coincidence, because here's the thing, I I don't have the attention span I feel that I would need. Like, for example, I have a very vivid imagination. I can come up with all of these stories, but not something that's long enough to character development and do all of this stuff and make sure that it makes sense from beginning to end. And I would lose interest in that very quickly. But in the book that I actually did, what I love about it was the characters were already there, because the book is
Mhm.
based on my family. So it
Yeah.
was very easy. Not just my family growing up, but the family that I've created for myself, my own children and my husband. So the character development was there. It was just a matter of retelling the stories in a way that made sense, where people could follow, and it kept their interest.
Yeah.
So that's kind of how I liken it to that. So it's these short stories, and what I love about it, and like with Chicken Soup for the Soul, is that people can read a story from beginning to end in just 5 or 6 pages and feel complete, and then maybe go pick up another story
Mhm.
another day. So it's not like you have to feel like you are leaving it in the middle or anything like that. So you have this sense of
Mhm.
completion. And then after each story, there is a comparison to the lesson, the biblical lesson that comes from it. Because what I would like for people to get from the book when they read it is not only to be entertained, because it will, if you look at the Amazon, especially the Amazon reviews that are on it, that's a common thread. People will say that they laughed out loud when they read
Yeah.
it. And that's not something you normally see when you read a devotional or
Yeah.
a
Yeah.
book. It's always so serious and heavy.
Serious. Mhm.
Yes. And while my book has its serious moments, I mean, the Lord gave us laughter for a reason. And I feel like he gave me this family for a reason. So I'm sharing that family with the world. So I would hope people would be entertained, so that keeps their attention. But it also, one of the main things that I heard from people after they read it was it brought them back to their own childhood.
Mhm.
It made them think about whether they had their own siblings, or whether they grew up real close with friends or cousins. It really got people thinking about their childhood and some of the crazy things that they did when they were kids. And I loved hearing those stories. But the other thing is too, that I heard, is that people started looking for meanings in things that they probably would not have looked under the surface of those things normally. They started saying, "There's a reason this is happening. There's a lesson here." And
Mhm.
that
Mhm.
kind of some of the things that the book has done for people. It's got them digging a little bit more, saying, "Okay, there's a reason that this is happening. I just need to figure out what it is." And also, the bigger part of it is, I'm hoping that the book will encourage people to pull out their Bible, challenge what I'm saying, challenge the lessons that I'm trying to put out there, see if you agree with it. And if you do, there's places in the book for you to write your own scriptures, take your own notes, write your own thoughts. So I really wanted it to be entertaining as well as a guide or
Yeah.
a study, a workbook kind of a thing.
Yeah. Yeah. A place where people can reflect.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. Where they can reflect. And so, everyone, her book is called Living a Parable, Finding Lessons in Unlikely Experiences. And so, where can they get your book, Sylvia?
They can get it on Amazon.
Okay.
They can go ahead and it's available there, or they can actually, the bookstores can order it. You can get it from wherever you get your favorite books. It might have to be ordered at a bookstore, but
Yeah.
you can do that too. If you're not an Amazon person, because I know some people don't want to shop on Amazon.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
they can go to their favorite bookstore and order it.
Wonderful. Wonderful. And so, when you and I first got connected and we started talking about some topics that you and I could talk about, some things like, there were several things that we could talk about. Um, I saw a video that you did about the history of the Tion law, and I was like, oh my gosh, like we could, go into depth about that topic. And then so I opened it up to you and I said, I really want to know, what do you want to talk about? And you started thinking about some things. And so uh, you were expressing a bit of frustration that you had with a review that someone had done for your book, and referring to your book as a Black devotional book. And when, in all actuality, you wrote the book for all Christians, not just Black Christians.
Mm-hmm.
And so oftentimes Black people are put into a box. We're put into this idea of a monolith. We're put into this, we can't possibly do work that will benefit other people kind of a box. And so can you talk a little bit about that experience, how that made you feel, and just how is it that you really want people to see your book, not just as a Black devotional, but as a devotional, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Well, first off, let me start. I believe that there is definitely a time and a place for, okay, Black people, we are going to rally behind this. This is for us. This is about us. So I don't have any problems with that. Like I said, I believe that there is a time and a place. But I think that there are people out there that think that there
That's
is
all we
no
do.
other
Yeah,
time.
that's all we do.
That's
Yeah.
it. That's it.
Mhm.
So what happened was I had submitted my book for a review, and it got a review in it was in Publishers Weekly. It was in a November edition, I think, of 2021 of Publishers Weekly. And what happened was, as I'm reading the review, I was scared to death at first when I was reading it, but then when I read it, I'm like, this is a favorable review. I was really happy. But when they closed it, there were a couple of things that when I read it the second time that kind of I honed in on. Number one, it said that the book was following the life of a middle class Black family. Now, for starters, I never said at all what the income of my family was.
Wow.
I
Wow, 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 wow.
never said it.
Wow.
So
Wow.
they just put that in the review. So I don't know where that came from.
Wow. I know where it came from. We can talk about that in a minute, but go ahead.
Okay. I believe I know where it came from, but I'm just saying I never ever said it. I said that in the book, by reading the book, my father was career military, but you knew nothing about what my mother did. You knew nothing about where we came from. None of that. You knew we lived in base housing, but then you just kind of, just made this leap, this assumption. But when you get to the end of it, when they're trying to say, okay, if you liked, and I've got it written down here, if you liked Parable of the Brown Girl, and if you liked She Speaks, Wisdom from Women of the Bible to the Modern Black Woman, if you like those two books, then this book is for you. And you said it, you hit the nail on the head. You said, put in a box. That is exactly what that review did. I was hoping that review would help to get the word about my book out there and encourage people to buy it. But instead, now it might have encouraged Black women to buy it, Black Christian women to even further, narrow down the audience.
Yeah.
But My book was not, as you said, it was not about, if it wasn't for my picture in the back, and if it wasn't for one story I told about when my mother would press our hair, and one joke I told about when I was at camp as a kid, and it was like Friday the 13th, and Black people, we don't make it to the end of those movies. So, those kinds of things. So those are the only three indications that you would have that the author of this book was Black. That was it. The book was not about being Black. The book was just written by someone who was Black. That's it. But
Wow.
because the book was written by someone who was Black, then this reviewer deemed it not good enough for anybody who is not Black. And that was extremely frustrating, extremely limiting and frustrating.
Well, see, I think that what it is they believe that because it's written by someone Black or someone of color, because this has not happened to just Black people, it's happened to other people of color or other people, in the LGBTQ population or whatever the case might be, right? Whatever your underrepresented quote unquote minority group is, they automatically believe that there's not going to be any interest that anyone else will have outside of that group, and so that therefore this particular product or whatever must be for that group only.
Right. And didn't they do that, like make that mistake in Hollywood for a long time, thinking that movies with Black cast would not do
They
very
sure
well?
did. Absolutely, absolutely, absolutely. And I remember a couple years ago, um, I curated an exhibition called Textures, the History and Art of Black Hair. And when I was in the process of curating that show, I was trying to decide if I was going to reach out to Howard University to have their gallery be the space for that particular show. And so my co-curator and I, who just so happened to be a white Asian American guy, he and I were talking about it. We were like, this exhibition is not just for Black people. We don't want to just have it at a Black university. We need this university. We need people in a predominantly white institution to be able to see this exhibition, because really this is for, really in all actuality, it's for them to help them learn more about Black culture. And so one of the things that I was very adamant about, even though this exhibition was about Black beauty, Black hair in particular, I did not want people to think that it was just for Black people. Everybody could go and enjoy it. Everybody could go and learn from it. Just like everybody could read your book, everybody could enjoy it, everybody can learn from your book.
That's exactly it.
Yeah.
And I think the other side of it too, and for example, I don't, I obviously don't know the ethnicity or the race of the person who wrote that review.
Yeah. I was going to ask you if you knew.
Right. And
Yeah.
I think maybe the sad part of it could be, and this would make it even more sad, is if I think sometimes we as Black people put ourselves in the box, or we put each other in a box.
Yeah.
It's like, and I don't agree with that
Yeah.
either. Really, we are so much more than the color of our skin, and our thoughts, our minds, the outreach that we have, the things that we are capable of, go beyond just people who look like us.
Absolutely.
And yeah, I've actually had people who mostly. I, I know of a person, a white person, who I actually argued with because I didn't fit what they thought a Black person should be.
Mm.
They thought I should vote a certain way. There was certain kind of music I should listen to. There were certain kind of businesses I would frequent. All of these things, but they summed me up just by looking at me. They didn't know anything about my upbringing, my past experiences, my education, my personal preferences. They knew nothing about me, but they took one look and thought that they knew the whole story.
Yeah.
I think that that's just a mistake that we've got to stop making. And
Yeah.
again, like when it comes to my book, it does not matter what color you are. That my book would appeal to if you grew up with if you if you were ever a child that got into some shenanigans with your best friends, you will probably like the stories that are in there. If you are a Christian, you'll probably like the stories that are in there, and how they're brought back to the Lord, and how we can dig deeper into his word. That's really
Yeah.
what it's about. It was not about race. And I think that's the other thing that drives me crazy. The reviewer made it about race.
Grace. Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
not about race. As hard as sometimes we, like I said, there's a time and a place, but it's not
Absolutely.
every time and every place. Everything a
Absolutely.
Black person does or says does not have to be about being Black. It
Yeah.
can be about just being a person and being
Yes.
alive.
Yeah. All the research, every bit of research that I've done over the years, this podcast, the exhibitions that I've curated have all been centered around Blackness. But really, what I wanted to do, those shows, those books, this podcast is really, in a lot of ways, I want people that are non-Black to listen, people that are non-Black to go and visit my shows, because one of the things that I really want to do is bring humanization to the Black culture, because as you know, in many ways we've been dehumanized and continue to be dehumanized. And so my mission is to humanize us in all ways, in the art world, humanize us, in literary world, humanize us, in overall society, and that's really what the work that I'm doing. Yeah, I definitely, for sure, do things that are catered towards Black culture, but it's for the humanization of Black culture.
Right? It's for the education
Yeah,
of those who are on the outside looking in, and honestly, there are definitely parts of this country who that need that.
absolutely.
They're
Absolutely.
definitely along those lines.
Yeah.
So I just came back from Afrotech conference a couple of weeks ago. I don't know if you're familiar
I,
with
I heard about it. A friend of mine sent me some information about it.
right. So while I was there, one of the things that I got chills when I was there because there's thousands and thousands of Black engineers that were there.
Mm,
And the first day that I was there, what gave me chills was the fact that I looked around and I saw all these people that looked like me. And I thought, not that long ago, that would have been illegal. You wouldn't have been
mhm.
able to have more than four of us together. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, yeah.
And then so there's that aspect of it, and then there's the other aspect that there are that there is this narrative that thinks that when a, a lot of Black people get together, there's going to be some kind of drama, there's going to be fights, there's going to be gunshots, there's going to be all of these things, this negativity, and that is what is sensationalized, that's what we hear about, that's but things like Afrotech that flies in the face of all of that. Here you have these brothers and these sisters from all over the country, all walks of life, these engineers, they're and everybody's together and having a good time and uplifting each other. It's for me, so for me, it was more than just all of these vendors coming together looking for engineers. It was this other side of the culture that is never talked about.
Discuss. Yeah,
Never
yeah,
talked
yeah. Us being, first off, us being intellectual is never talked about, right?
about.
And in mainstream, us being tech savvy is not talked about. So that particular conference, which I'm going to have to go to next year, I have a son who he's studying now at the STEM high school to become an engineer, and so I'm going to have to take my son to that conference. But when people think about us, like you said, when people think about us, especially us in a group, they always think negative. They always think about stereotypical aspects about Black culture. And I think it's our responsibility as Black people is to not feed into those. We do ourselves a huge disservice when we feed into it. And it just, again, as an educator, as someone who, tries to have a bit of a platform, I want to always make sure that I'm a representation of what else people can see about Black people, about Blackness, not the stereotypes, not I refuse to watch all the crazy things on TV that they put about, the housewives and all these other things. I refuse to watch those kinds of things because it's just the epitome of stereotypes about us, you
Yeah.
know? Yeah, yeah,
And
yeah.
I think what's sad about that is the fact that, again, there are certain parts of the country where we're not very well represented at
Oh
all. There's
yeah. Oh
just
yeah.
not very many of us.
Oh yeah.
Now, I have met people from those parts of the country, and especially when I talk to their kids. And because kids have no filter, they don't know. Some of the questions that I get asked, you could tell that they're from a part of the country where there aren't very many Black people. And then I remember my husband was playing a video game. I think it was, I'm not going to say the name of the game, but he was playing a game. And in the game, the Black people in the game, depicted in this game, hoodlums, they were thieves, they were criminals, that kind of thing. And all I could think to myself was, these games are sold in every state. And if you have kids, teenagers who don't really know Black people in their everyday life, but
Mhm.
they get the news and they get these games like this, and that's kind of the depiction that they get of us. And I think that, like you said, we do ourselves a disservice sometimes when we kind of feed into it. There's so much more to us, and I think that that's one of the things I really love about Afrotech. I kind of took away from Afrotech probably something, I don't know, maybe that is the intent, to have people come together and feel the way that I felt. When I went there, I was really thinking more along the lines of, okay, it's going to be about engineers and all this technical stuff and finding talent, but that's not what I took away. It was this whole other feeling, deep feeling of pride. It really was
Mhm,
pride.
mhm, mhm. Excellent, excellent. Do you have anything that you would like to talk about that we didn't touch on? We talked about lots of different things, and so I would love to hear anything that's been on your mind that you really wanted to discuss during our conversation today.
You know what? There is one thing.
Yeah.
So I right before the show, you were talking to me about Toastmasters, and for
Oh
those,
yeah.
yes,
Yeah.
for those who don't know, I just competed in the Toastmasters World Championship of Public Speaking. I was one of the top 8. So in order to get there, I had to win 6 straight competitions. There were 35,000 people from over 100 countries that competed. So even to make it to the top 8 was pretty an accomplishment. But
Mhm.
what I would like to share with the viewers, if I may, as you said before, I'm very much into I'm all about the Lord. He is my rock. He is my strength. He is my guide. He is my compass. He is everything.
Yeah.
When I started this speaking, I told myself, I said, when I speak, He will always be a part of what I talk about, whether I can only plant a seed or whether I can go full blown sermon
Right.
on the listeners, but somehow, some way. And I told myself, if I'm ever told you cannot mention his name if you're going to speak for us, that would be an opportunity that I would have to pass on.
Yeah.
So when I was practicing
Wow. Wow. Wow.
when I was practicing for the Toastmasters thing, speech, there was a part in my speech where I talk about, those one of my favorite scriptures where it says, "Those who put their hope in the Lord, they will renew their strength. They will soar on wings like eagles. They will run and not grow weary. They will walk and not be faint." And I quoted that. And so when I was going through in these competitions and they were giving me feedback, they would always say, "Ooh, if you're going to be in front of an international audience and you're going to have all these different kinds of faiths, maybe that might not be a good thing to bring." And I said, "That's a hill I'm willing to die on. I'm not
Wow.
taking him out." And then
Wow.
when I got to the main stage, there was a part in there where I did say, "And Lord, if it is your will," and I said that on the world stage. And because again, that was part of the promise that I made. So what I would want to say to people who are listening, um, we live in a world today where people will challenge your faith. They may not do it on purpose, or they may do it on purpose, but I think that it is so important that we stand on that rock and that we don't allow ourselves to be intimidated to the point to where we put God in a closet and we don't let that side of ourselves show. Uh,
Mhm.
so that's why my book was basically a Christian devotional. That's why when in all of my speeches that I do, I, that you'll see some kind of an aspect with him. He goes with me everywhere I go. So
Yeah.
if there's
Yeah.
something that you, I'm talking to the listeners now, if there's something that you believe in wholeheartedly, stand on that. Don't let
Mhm.
anybody beat it out of you or make you afraid to be who you are or what you believe in.
Yeah. Whenever I do speaking engagements, I often talk about authenticity and integrity. And I always say in my speeches to show up as your authentic self, and then also to never let anyone compromise your integrity. And so really what you're talking about is, other people trying to compromise your true authenticity.
Right.
It just so happens that it's about your faith, but that's who you are and that's who you want to represent. That's who you want to show up as. And so anybody that is trying to do no matter what it is, you may not be speaking on a stage, but whatever it is, never ever allow anyone to compromise your authenticity and your integrity, right?
Absolutely.
Mhm. And
Absolutely.
the reason why I left, I was telling you that I was a part of Toastmasters for 2 years. Okay. So the reason why I ended up leaving my Toastmasters group, so I was the only Black person in my Toastmasters group. And I had gotten up and had done a speech in front of my colleagues. And there was a gentleman there, probably like in his 60s, white man, who, when the group gave me feedback, had the nerve to say, "You're so intimidating," in front of the group.
Uh, I would I would have
Put
asked.
me right in a box.
What did that mean though? I don't know what
Well,
that.
see, well, see, that's the thing, is that if we have any kind of passion, if we have any kind of see, if you are a Black person that is forthright in your words, you're not a person that's going to be sugarcoating, you're going to be telling the truth. If you are all about, like I said, authenticity and the truth, it's in some ways, to some people, it's intimidating.
I see you. I know what you mean.
Okay.
I
And
do know what
so this white gentleman told me that I was intimidating. So I had a couple weeks that passed, and it was going to be my turn to get up and give another, I think it was like a 7-minute speech or something, right? The next speech that I got up and gave was, "I'm not intimidating, I'm just excellent." And
Ah!
then that was my last meeting, honey. That was my last meeting. I said, "You guys will never see me again."
Wow. Yeah, I know what you mean now. Now at first I'm like, what does that mean? But no, I get it. And I don't understand the angry Black woman kind of a thing.
The box, the
Yeah,
box.
being strong,
Yes, the
being
box.
strong. Can I don't I got no explanation
Yeah.
for why that is a box that we are in. But I get I know there are times that I don't play. I know that there are
Mhm.
times where I can be seen as I do not play. That's mess with my husband, mess with my children. My mother was the same way. But I think that I mean, I think that comes from a history of having to be strong.
Mhm.
My, I look back at my grandmother. Oh, whew. My grandmother, my dad's mom especially, no, you did not play with Miss Maggie. You didn't do that. But she had to be.
Yeah.
She had to the things that our grandparents and our great grandparents had to put up with, you didn't they didn't have the luxury of just sitting back and being all dainty and whatever. It wasn't like that. So these Black women, these strong Black women raised strong Black women who
Yeah,
are raising strong Black women.
absolutely.
That's
Absolutely.
just how we are. And if that intimidates somebody, then I'm sorry.
Hey,
I don't know how else to be.
hey, I really don't. I can't be anything else but who I am.
Right.
Cannot be anything else but who I am. So I want to know, like, what's the next thing for you? What are you doing next, Sylvia?
Well, I am starting out with, I'm going to start doing 90-day workshops. Like I said, like you said in the intro, I had been working with women on their fitness and health. I am going to embark on another 90-day journey with a new group of women, and that's going to start on December 1st. I
Okay.
am going to dive head first, me and my siblings, into Siblings Talk Trending, which we do have a channel on YouTube. So anybody who's listening, go to the Sibling Talk Trending channel on YouTube and on Instagram, and you can start to follow us there. It's a lot of fun. We keep it very lighthearted. We don't dive into any of the heavy stuff that's going to be all get people mad. It's just good, clean fun. So that's what I'm working on. I'm working on
Yeah.
my speech. I'm writing another book. So
Nice.
2024 is going to be a big year.
Nice. Very nice. Very nice. Well, thank you so much. And where can people keep in touch with you besides your YouTube channel?
You can find me online at www.thesilviadavis, so TheSilviaDavis. So thesilviadavis.com. And you can find me there. I'm available for speaking engagements. My
Yes.
areas of expertise are listed on my website. So women empowerment, resilience is my word. So resilience in Black history. That's
Yeah.
the other thing that I'm really big about, really passionate about. There's so many lessons on resilience in Black history.
Yeah.
So kind of killing two birds with one stone in that. So yes, you can find out how to contact me there. My phone number, my email, all of that is there.
Very nice. Thank you so much. I appreciate you spending some time with me. And thank you to Meredith. If you are watching, Meredith, thank you for putting these two dynamic women together for this beautiful conversation. So it was wonderful to meet you.
And thank you for having me. I've thoroughly enjoyed this. Thank you.
Thank you. Have a good night.
You too.
All right, everyone. So this is the time of the show where I talk a little bit about some of the research. As I always say, I am an author, researcher, and I think it's really important for me every time I prepare for one of these sessions that I always do some research and be able to bring that research back to the audience. And so I want to share an article with you all. The article is called In Dialogue: What is Misunderstood About Blackness? And this was from the Princeton University Press. The author's name is Akil Janalahanda. And some of the quotes that were in here that I would love to just share with you that are very powerful. One is, and what this is something that me and Sylvia were just talking about. So the article reads, given the diversity among Black Americans today, any assumptions we make about the origins, experiences, and characteristics of someone you perceive as Black are likely to be wrong. Another quote was, another misunderstanding about Blackness in America is that the history, struggles, and concerns of Black people should be, quote unquote, contained rather than being seen as an integral part of the understanding of American history, culture, and society at large. And we are seeing that still today with this whole ban about Black books, ban on critical race theory, ban on all of these other things. Black history is human American history. It's global it's global history. So Black people are not a monolith. Black people's culture, Black people's the way that we live, what we eat, what we drink, all those things are on display. And it's really for everyone to be able to enjoy, to admire, to learn from. And like I said before, this podcast, the Black Beauty Activist podcast, yes, it is for Black people. It is called Black Beauty. But what I am wanting everybody that's watching to get from this is a better understanding and an empathy of Black culture. As I was mentioning to Sylvia, a humanization of Black culture. And so this episode of the Black Beauty Activist podcast was brought to you by my book, my 5th book, Black Hair in a White World. I am super pumped because I'm on tour with this book. My next out-of-state trip will be to Chicago and Minneapolis in January. And so I am super, super, super pumped because this book is the first book that I've been able to do a tour with. And not only that, this book has taken me into the lives of so many other students. I've gotten a chance to visit so many universities, gotten a chance to be a part of so many amazing conversations. I just on this past Wednesday, I was a featured author at Elizabeth's bookstore. Elizabeth Bookstore is actually owned by the famous New York Times bestselling author Rachel Cargle. I think that's how she pronounces her last name. But the Elizabeth's Bookstore is the only Black bookstore here in Akron where I live. And we had an amazing conversation, and I plan to take this book across the nation, have other amazing conversations with others in various areas. And so if you are wanting to pick up this book, please, please, please pick it up from a website called bookshop.org. Bookshop.org is a place where you can go and purchase. You can purchase this book as well as my other book, Textures, The History and Art of Black Hair. And the positive of shopping on bookshop.org is that they will give part of the proceeds to whatever local Black bookstore is in your neighborhood. So when someone in the Akron area purchases this book on bookshop.org, the Elizabeth's Bookstore will get a part of the proceeds. A donation will be given to support Black-owned bookstores. So I just want to thank you all for listening. It's my absolute honor to be with you all again. And if you loved listening to this podcast and love the conversations, I always have some kind of dynamic conversation that I'm talking about in relation to Black culture. Please share. Please share it in your circles with people that you believe that will benefit. Please go ahead and subscribe to my YouTube channel, the Black Beauty Activist Podcast. And remember, always, always remember, this is a model that I live by. My life has been evolved because of the fact that I was able to step out on faith and not live stagnated in fear. And so I want everyone to always remember that on the other side of fear is your beautiful, beautiful confidence. Peace and blessings, everybody.